If you have finer hair, long or short, and are feeling like, ugh, I just need some more movement and more volume, then keep watching because this video and cutting tutorial is going to be perfect for you. Having fine or thin hair can be an endless struggle for making it look as full as possible or even having the right cut. Often people with this hair type don't know what kind of haircut to ask for, or you're not sure how to style it, and even stylists don't always understand this type of hair and either end up putting in too many layers or taking weight out of the wrong areas. I have been a hairstylist for 15 years behind the chair, and here on my channel, I do a mix of cutting tutorials as well as product reviews and styling tips geared heavily towards finer hair. So I highly suggest checking out some of my playlists if you are new to my channel and fall into that hair category. Before we start the haircut, I want to talk about things you need to understand when having finer or thinner hair when getting your haircut. You need to know where your thinnest or finest areas are on your head. Is it the front, the back, the sides? This is very important to know in order to make sure you are cutting into the right spots and avoiding certain areas. Often people with fine or thin hair tend to have their fullness or thickness coming from the back, so more needs to be cut in the back for layering, but in the front they tend to get thinner and have less hair, so the amount of layering needs to be adjusted to try and keep as much weight as possible in the front. As a stylist, you need to be more aware of your fine or thinner hair clients. Listen, our hair type tends to grow at a snail's pace. I'm not kidding. Whatever version of slow you have in your head, slow it down even more. Too many layers or length removed honestly can set us back months to a year. Really take the time to listen to what the client is asking for and go through their hair really well visually before shampooing to really see the hair for what it is. This will help you to be able to give them the cut they are looking for, as well as giving suggestions that can help make the cut even better or tweak it to better fit their hair density. In this tutorial today, I will be showing you how I add in layers all throughout the head, but I don't compromise the natural weight of the hair while still giving more movement and volume to the hair. So let's get this cut started. All right, so we are just gonna hop right into sectioning, always very key. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna be separating, like always, from the ear forward, but because we are creating some layers in this finer hair, I'm gonna actually go a little bit behind the ear here. And I'm doing that because oftentimes this is the section that can be sort of the danger zone for cutting into fine layers. So typically I would be a little bit closer in, but I wanna make sure I'm going back far enough away from the ear so I'm really taking out any possibility of creating a hole, because we never want that really with any hair type or any haircut, but especially with finer hair types. And also the holes tend to get created a little bit because this is where the curve starts to happen with the hairline. So you got the length down here, but it gets shorter up there. And if you're finer on those underneath parts, like so many people are, that's really where the holes can start sneaking in on you. Okay, so now that we have our sides sectioned off, we are going to determine where we want our shortest layer to be. Now, when creating layers, I always recommend keeping in mind how long your hair is. You want everything to flow. Obviously, if you go too short and want to keep your length, it tends to look a little mullety. Not that you can't kind of freehand in some shorter pieces, but overall you want to make note that you want it to blend. We're trying to create shape and movement, but we also want to keep the weight and the natural thickness of the hair as much as possible, because this is based on if they are a finer hair type. So we want it to flow, we want movement, but going too short of the layers, you're gonna take away too much weight down here. So to determine, once you have decided where you're going, what I simply do is I will take my shears and I'm just gonna come right in the middle and grab a little bit of my top section here. Nothing too thick or too crazy. And I'm gonna take my shears and I'm just gonna sliver down on it. So basically we're trying to keep ours at the roundness of the head here, so that occipital bone area. So I'm gonna come in, I've got my fingers here, I'm just gonna pull out, and I'm just gonna glide down the hair. So that has created our first layer. right in this area. So we are going to be matching up to that. So a lot of times, and this type of haircut is fine for people who really don't want any bulk taken out. What I always suggest for the finer hair types is I say, come in, go up, and twist. But if you're somebody who likes more flow everywhere, you're gonna more than likely feel like this is too thick and heavy in here. So the way that I'm going to demonstrate today is great to blend this in, but you're still maintaining as much weight and thickness here as possible. So now that we have done that, I'm just gonna come right back into that center part where I started my guide. And I'm actually gonna clip this out of the way. In salon, I probably wouldn't, but for this cut, purpose-wise, it just is a little easier. And I'm gonna do the same on this other side. So now that our guide is established, we're gonna come right in the middle here, and we're gonna pull out basically 90 degrees from the head. But instead of keeping my fingers at a straight up and down angle, if I were to cut all this, here, you're gonna take out a lot of weight from this bottom. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come out from the head, and I'm gonna twist, let that fall, and we're gonna cut this hair that's on the top here. And we're gonna come up. So we basically wanna meet our guide here, come up, twist, and cut. And then to double check the bottom, I'm gonna just I'm not moving down with it like I would with other hair types, because that's gonna jeopardize this too much. I'm just gonna pull up a little bit more hair from the bottom, pull it out, twist, and nip at these little hairs that are poking out right here. So essentially these type of layers, you wanna think of it as you're just sort of skimming the outer layer of the hair. You're creating shape, but you're not compromising this weight and thickness. So I'm gonna take this next section here, and instead of rounding with the head, so if I were to be rounding with the head, I'd be moving my guide straight out from where I'm pulling. I'm gonna be bringing everything back towards the center. So over directing a little bit back to this center part. And what that is going to do is it's going to create a little bit more length, rounding in, especially this is key for the corners of the hair to keep that thickness. And then it will tie in with how I'm gonna create the side layers. So coming back to the center here, pull out and twist. You can see your guide and cut. Coming up, back to center, twist, see that guide, and cut it. And it's already flowing nice, and I use pivot point mannequins, and they actually have quite a bit of texture to them, not gonna lie, which is nice. I'm gonna re-spray down her hair. Remember, keep the hair nice and damp. Those last two sections were probably a little bit more dry than they should be, but mental note for when you're in salon or cutting your own hair. I'm gonna try to show you from a different angle here. So we're coming back to center here, and we're just coming straight out at that 90-degree angle, and I'm twisting and cut. Coming out, twist, and cut. That flows in very nice. So the more you move around the head and pulling it back to center, you're gonna have a little less hair that you're taking off. And one might feel like, oh my gosh, it's not gonna blend, it's gonna be uneven, it's gonna look weird. The thing that's key with cutting finer hair, you almost sort of need to forget about cutting perfect and technical and everything matching up and everything being the exact way. Most hair types, you have to kind of adjust that, not all hair types, but a lot of hair types require you to kind of think outside the box with how we were taught in school. With my hair personally, I know that anything from basically my ear forward, I really can't cut it. I just don't have the weight and the thickness. So I make sure to let my stylist know, hey, I can't, you know, take any layers in the front of my head. I think I said this in my last cutting video. So one might think, hey, that looks really weird. It doesn't. You blend it in, and I'll show you how we're gonna blend it in to match that you don't notice it. So we've got our layer coming in, that when we move to center, everything sort of blends in, and now we're just gonna work on our other side. So again, we're gonna bring it back to the center. I'm pulling straight out from the head, trying to keep in that 90 degree, and I'm twisting. So that hair is falling out. I can see my little baby guide here, and cut. And then we're following up the head just a little bit, nothing crazy, to connect where our original layer was. Next section, pulling back towards you. So this helps if you stand sort of where you want to pull the hair to if you were in salon. Out, twist, and cut. And even almost when I'm cutting the layers like to blend with the top, while I'm pulling it out, and like I said, this, as you get to the side corner here, you really have less hair to nip at. But when I'm pulling it out as I'm moving up her head, I'm trying to still pull as much out at a 90, if that makes sense within reason, rather than coming in and like really twisting. I just want to sort of skim that outer layer as much as possible without cutting into it. And then now that we've done that, we're just gonna take the hair along the top here, and I'm gonna bring it straight up. And I'm just gonna point cut into anything. So this side here, somehow I will have to go back through and see that guide to blend that in. This is why we do the checking here on the top, to make sure that top layer blends. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna come back over here and see what I missed and get it matching. Let me re-angle her this way so you guys can see better. So we're gonna take this side piece, pull it all the way back to center. All that hair there, perfect. So that is what I missed. That's why we went back in along this top to make sure everything blends in. One more time. That little nub. Perfect. So now we are going to move into our sides. So this is where you're gonna change that angle of your hands. You're not gonna be pulling it out at the same exact angle or elevation. I'm actually gonna pull it higher up and pull it back further away from the face. So we're gonna take our section here. I'm still technically behind the ear with this section. Again, we took our original guide to be a little bit further behind the ear, or brought up forward, I should say. So we're gonna come up and we're pulling back, twisting our hands towards the ceiling, let that bottom fall, and we're just cutting up into it. I will wait to add a little bit more layering on the sides until after I've gotten it dry, but I typically would come in and I would twist again and cut into that, but I'm gonna wait to do that just to ensure we're not risking any sort of hole here or taking too much away from the face, especially in somebody who has uber fine, thin hair along the sides of their head. So we're coming up, straight back, and cut. And the closer you get to the face, the less hair that you're going to have to cut, that is. Straight back, bring it up, and cut. finish off on our last side here. I'm gonna let this hair out and I'm gonna wet it down. So again, taking our first parting, we're pulling it straight, back, and up. Twisting those hands, let that bottom hair fall, and cut. All that hair is out. We've got all the weight here from the sides coming all the way down to preserve that. And then this last piece along the face. Just barely on top. And then before moving into any face framing, we're gonna come along the top again, same as I did in the back. And we're gonna pull this whole top layer straight up. And then usually what I will do, because that back layer is a little bit shorter, to make the top layer and the back layer meet, the back top layer I should say, I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna twist, twist, twist. I can see my guide right here of the layer in the back. So in order to meet that, I'm gonna see that guide. You can see it there. I'm gonna come all the way up here. Let me turn it to the side. I'm coming all the way up, still twisting my hands like I did, creating these layers. And I am just gonna cut right into that with my scissors up at an angle. And that will allow that to flow in a little bit better while not compromising our sides underneath here. So to add face framing in on finer hair. So I'm gonna be creating her face framing layers similar to how I did, I think it was like 2 haircuts ago. We left it all one length in the back and just did some face framing. So it was ideal for people who don't want the layers in the back of their head. I don't wanna cut my face framing too far back to her ear. A lot of people get really thin right in this area. This is where I have my problem. This is why I don't prefer face framing on myself. I'm really receded under here. So I will just section off the hair right at that ear to get it out of the way. So we're not cutting too far back into the weight of the sides here. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. So think of it almost like you're creating a triangle, so to speak. So we've got the triangle here forming with a little bit coming in around her sides here. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this face framing on the longer side, but with the very, very front minimal, actually with a little bit shorter, trying to create a light wisp and bend in the hair. So I'm gonna basically cut my face framing first on the longer side, and then at the end I will go in and add the shorter piece. So I'm actually gonna clip this back because she's bothering me and in the way. So like I said, we're taking our first section here, coming down at her chin, and as I glide my shears down, I'm gonna be pulling towards me. What the pulling towards me is gonna do is allow for the most length and weight to remain. If I just come in and slide straight back, you're gonna get a lot of this length taken off here, and chances are you're gonna be removing that weight and thickness that the client is trying to keep. So coming in and pull as you are slivering down. So this is a very minimal face framing. It's nothing too crazy or thick. It will give some shape, but it's also gonna retain, like I said, that weight and thickness that we wanna see. So I'm standing on the opposite side of my client, coming in, follow that guide, cut, and pull towards you. Last section. You can see where the hair is starting to come out. come in and pull towards you. And I actually like that some of that hair fell out before cutting. That means I am preserving all this length and weight here. I'm gonna let down the rest of the hair. And then I'm just gonna take a small section and I'm gonna curve it down with my comb. So I'm coming down and twisting and just barely cut out that little hair that remains. I'm gonna go across her face a little bit more, twist, and cut. So this kind of allows for like a little bit more baby of a layer, but again, you're not taking too much length and weight out of that. And then I'm gonna take a small piece out to use as a guide for the other side. Flip this hair out of the way, let that down. Take your first section. Again, we're not trying to grab all of this at one time and cut into it. It's better to take it in sections. And I'm just gonna kind of cut up at an angle, start very long, curve my scissors, and cut up to meet that guide. Perfect. All right, I'm standing on the opposite side of the head. We're pulling the hair across the face as I'm gonna be gliding down. Angle my shears, meet my guide, and pull towards me. Next section. Last piece. And again, this hair fell out before finishing. And then we're gonna take the hair from the side section here, same as before, taking this hair, combing down at an angle, twisting, pulling still across that face, and cut out any little hairs you see. Bring it up, twist over, cut. Awesome. And then, like I said, I want to create just a little baby, shorter face framing piece right here in the very front. I almost want it to stay at a little bit of a disconnect. So I am simply just going to take literally this tiny little triangle. I'm going to twist it. Come down to right at the chin instead of right below it. And I'm gonna just point cut into that to create a little bit more of a swoop. And what that'll do too is if you do a really nice flowy blow dry, you'll get just a tiny amount of a bend. It's nothing crazy, but I feel like it's a way to kind of give a little extra pop to the face framing. But because it's only right here in this front area, you've got your length right here behind it, still a little bit longer, especially for people who are like me and in their top temples, they're a little thin. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get her blow dried. I'm gonna give her a really nice full blow dry with some bend and movement everywhere. And then we will go through and check the cut, do any dry cutting that we might need to do, and see the finished look. Okay, so we've got her dried and styled. She's got some nice movement and layers everywhere. I'm gonna spin her here to the back so you can see. So we've got the movement here all through the top, but you've got a flow of it all through the head, but we have not compromised this bottom weight. It's still full. The hair maintained that natural thickness. And on the sides, we've got a good face frame going and the layers blend in quite well, if I do say so myself. I am gonna show you guys how I would go in and do just a little bit of freehand layers to just soften it up a little bit. This is especially nice to do if somebody wants to see a little bit more movement through maybe their top layer. So what I will do is I'll just come in and I'm literally just gonna glide my scissors through the hair as if I was Doing the face framing, nothing crazy, just barely coating it. And this is nice for creating a little extra texture in the hair. I just did this on a textured bob that I did last week. So if you wanna check that out, I'll link that below in the description. But it just softens it up a little bit. So that way, wearing the hair straight or curled, you get a little bit more movement with it. And in that cut, I did it all over the place. For this, I'm just doing it throughout the top. Nothing crazy, just a little bit to soften it up in some spots and add that texture. And then what I am gonna do in this very, very back, I'm just gonna point cut into the top layer. Now this part would be optional depending on how much hair your client has or doesn't have. I'm just doing it to show you guys what it can look like if you wanna go through and soften it up. And this adds some nice texture too without removing as much weight compared to using a thinning or traditional texturizing shear. And then if you are one who doesn't like point cutting, just simply let your stylist know. It's not for everybody, but I even do it on a lot of my finer hair type clients. So you can do it without removing too much weight. But yeah, she's looking nice. So we're just gonna get finished up here. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Here is our final result for adding layers into fine or thinner hair types. We've got fullness still at the perimeter and overall just some nice shape to give that movement and added volume to the hair. Once you have created your top layer guide, remember to bring the hair out to a 90 and twist your fingers to layer the outer part of the hair to keep the movement going all the way down. When moving into the sides, remember to pull back and up as we want to keep more fullness in the front. As a client, make sure you know where your fullest and thinnest areas are to be able to know what you want cut and what you don't. And stylists, make sure you are really listening to your client and visually go over their hair prior to washing to make sure you see how the hair is laying and to better understand what suggestions or tweaks you can offer to make the cut look its best. I so hope you all enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to check out my playlist, All Things Volume for your fine, thin hair. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.